Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Intelligent Enterprise Storytellers. My name is Kai Hahn. I'm the VP, Head of Digital Content here at the Intelligent Enterprise Leaders Alliance. And it is my great pleasure to welcome Dr. Joe Perez to the program. Joe is a technology and professional development expert and an Amazon best-selling author with multiple new releases, who speaks at numerous conferences all around the world each year. And he currently serves as Senior Systems Analyst and Team Leader at the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services. Welcome, Joe.
Thank you so much, Kai. It's really an honor and a privilege for me to be here on your program.
Thank you. It's our pleasure, and it's really great to have you, especially excited about today's topic, which is beyond the algorithm, exploring the pitfalls and transformative possibilities of AI. And I also should mention that today's interview will be featured in our upcoming market study called AI and the Future of Work, which will be published this fall. So definitely keep an eye out for that. And now, Joe, let's dive into this very, very riveting topic. So 2024 is really a big year for AI implementation, and a number of
Mhm.
companies that didn't already in previous years have now jumped the bandwagon, rolling out AI initiatives. It's growing steadily in terms of adoption. What do you see as maybe some of the greatest pitfalls that you have seen with regards to AI implementation?
Sure. Well, one of the greatest pitfalls in AI implementation that I see is the erosion of human creativity. Kai, when organizations begin to rely too heavily on AI, I think there's a real danger of stifling innovation. See, AI algorithms, while powerful indeed, operate within the confines of their programming, right? And the data that they have been fed. And this can lead to what I would like to call a homogenization of content and ideas, where the unique spark of human imagination is extinguished by, I don't know, formulaic and uninspired outcomes. Imagine, if you will, a future where, say, artists, musicians, and writers simply become operators of the AI engine. Their creative expression reduced to the mere pushing of buttons that generate predictive results. The vibrant flame of human creativity, which has always driven progress for centuries, risks being smothered by the uniformity of this algorithmic output. That's what you get when you trust in generative AI alone. Another significant pitfall that I see, Kai, is the loss of objectivity. When AI is trusted without any human oversight, okay, AI systems, even though they're efficient at processing vast amounts of data, are only as objective as the data that they've been trained on. Now, when biases are embedded into that data, AI can perpetuate and even exacerbate these biases, and that leads to well, discrimination outcomes. And this becomes especially concerning to me, Kai, um, in areas like criminal justice, hiring practices, and financial practices, where the consequences of bias are particularly severe. Without the warmth of human empathy and the ability to understand context and nuance, AI can turn justice into a cold mechanical process. One that strips away the humanity that's necessary for fair and compassionate decision makings in that realm. Um, Lastly, I think there's the peril of over reliance on AI. Yeah, we depend on it too much, and some people see it as a replacement for human judgment and expertise rather than an enhancement thereof. Um, that is, it's supposed to be a tool to make us better. See, when AI is dependent upon too heavily, Kai, the essential skills that make us human, critical thinking, problem solving, adaptability, that kind of thing, that begins to atrophy. And this over reliance creates a fragile system where the failure of AI can lead to catastrophic consequences. Like the ones that we saw in the tragic example of the Space Shuttle Challenger back in 1986, where a single misjudgment based on a misunderstood tool, the O ring, led to disaster. So, yeah, sure, AI's potential for good, immense, but it demands respect and understanding. And to avoid all these pitfalls that I've talked about, we need to remember that AI is only a tool and not a master. And it's our responsibility, we, us, humans, okay, our responsibility to wield that tool wisely, enhancing our capabilities without surrendering our humanity. That's how I see it.
Mhm. Yeah, obviously AI is a tool. If we're all using the same tool, right, and we all use just generic marketing messages, you will not be able
Eh,
to stand out anymore. You do need that human
right.
creativity in order to really drive home how you differentiate yourself. Um, I will get into my questions about bias a little bit later. But first of all, would also love to know from you what foundational groundwork on the technical side is really needed to double check data
Hmm.
quality, data governance in order to leverage AI effectively. Because a lot of people are adopting it, and there are two schools of thought. One is like we have to get the foundations 100% perfect before we um, go on this beautiful journey, or the no, let's have some quick wins, and it doesn't matter if we have the data quality and there are issues with our data governance. What's your take on that?
Hmm. Excellent question. Um, to um, to leverage AI effectively, Kai, I think that foundational groundwork of data quality and data governance is absolutely crucial. Um, I would say that the first step would be ensuring that the data being fed into the AI systems is both accurate and comprehensive. You see, poor quality data leads to poor quality insights. I mean, we already know that. And when decisions are made based on this incomplete or incorrect information, well, the consequences can be severe. And this isn't just related to having a large data set. No, I'm talking about having the right data. Okay, data that's representative, relevant, up to date. Before any AI implementation, it's essential to thoroughly clean and validate the data, identifying and eliminating any errors or any biases or redundancies. This process ensures that the AI system is working with the most reliable information available, leading to outcomes that are both trustworthy and effective. All right. Another critical aspect I see is establishing strong data governance frameworks. These frameworks dictate how data is collected and stored, processed, and shared out within an organization. Effective governance ensures that data is handled in a way that's both ethical and compliant with any regulatory standards. This would include things like setting clear policies on data privacy, data security, well, access control too, as well as creating protocols for auditing and monitoring the whole data cycle. Good data governance also involves making sure that all stakeholders, from the data engineers all the way to end users and everybody in between, that they all understand and stick to these policies. You know, when data governance is strong, Kai, it not only protects the organization from ethical and legal risks, but it also enhances the integrity and reliability of the AI systems that rely on this data. Um, Finally, creating a culture of responsibility around data management. That's essential too. And that means that everybody in the process, from data scientists to decision makers, need to take responsibility for the quality and ethical use of the data. It's not enough just to set up the systems and the frameworks I was talking about. There also needs to be an ongoing commitment to education and diligence, regularly revisiting and revitalizing and revising the strategies, especially as new data sources and technologies emerge. Um, that is the key to effective maintenance of AI. So, by prioritizing data quality and governance, um, organizations can ensure that AI becomes this powerful tool we're talking about, right, for both innovation and decision making, rather than, say, a source of risk and uncertainty. That's my take.
And then to hone in on the second component of your previous answer, the framework,
Mhm.
what would you say is really needed to critically evaluate AI's impact on a number of things, such as liability, dependability? You mentioned that it needs oversight, obviously, objectivity, that's the bias that you hit on, but also creativity in terms of the human spark that, that you mentioned
Yeah.
at the beginning. Mhm,
Right. You talking about the framework that's needed?
mhm,
Sure. So, a great question, Kai. Um, I um I believe that you have to have some robust framework, a multidimensional framework to accomplish this goal. It needs to begin with purpose-driven assessment criteria. Um, for the creativity, well, the focus is going to be on whether AI is enabling innovation or merely producing repetitive content. And this involves analyzing not only the output but also the process from one step to the other. Whether AI is being used as a catalyst to stimulate new ideas and break the creative block that we sometimes have, or if it's only dampening originality by enforcing some stiff norm. The framework needs to include both qualitative and quantitative metrics, and this will gauge both the diversity and the uniqueness of the ideas generated with AI's assistance, not them taking over. It also needs to assess whether AI is empowering creative professionals to explore new frontiers, or if it's simply reducing them to just mere operators of a pre-programmed tool. Okay. Objectivity. I think the framework needs to include a rigorous examination of the data sources, along with the algorithms that AI relies on. This involves scrutinizing the data for those biases we talked about, and
mhm.
ensuring that the algorithms are designed to minimize them rather than perpetuate them. Uh, the evaluation process needs to include regular audits of the decisions that AI makes, especially in sensitive areas, like hiring and finance. Impartiality is critical. A key aspect of the framework needs to be measuring how well AI enhances objectivity by filtering out the human biases versus how often it falls prey to the very biases that are embedded within the data it processes. The goal is to create a level playing field, right, where AI decisions are transparent, explainable, and free from the human prejudices. You know, when it comes to liability and dependability, those other two pillars you mentioned, Kai, the framework needs to integrate shared accountability mechanisms and reality checks too. Reliability, it's essential to establish clear guidelines. Who is responsible, right? Whenever AI systems might fail or produce harmful outcomes, the hallucinations people talk about. Uh, this is including not just the developers and the operators of the systems, but also the organizations that deploy them. Everyone's responsible. The framework needs to evaluate whether these whole systems have built in safeguards and whether there's a clear path to recourse when things go wrong. Um, what was the other one? Dependability. It needs to include stress tests, maybe some scenario planning, right? To assess how AI systems perform under unexpected conditions, right? Regular monitoring, maintenance protocols, that's crucial too. And that makes sure that AI remains a reliable partner rather than a fragile crutch that falters in critical moments. So by implementing this comprehensive framework that I've outlined, Kai, organizations can harness the power of AI while at the same time safeguarding against its potential pitfalls, ensuring that those four things, creativity, objectivity, liability, and dependability, are upheld at every step.
So you you mentioned obviously the framework as one way of addressing biases, but what are
Mhm.
maybe some strategies drilling down into that companies can deploy when it
Yeah,
comes to addressing biases? Are there any other ideas that you have seen working very well?
sure. Excellent question. So, um, how do we address these biases? And companies first need to acknowledge that bias, it's not just a technical issue, right? It's also a profound human issue as well. You see, Kai, the biases in AI are not in and of themselves. They're often nothing more than a mirror of the biases in the data that we ourselves feed into it, the decisions that we ourselves make during its development. So, companies need to start by committing to a deep introspective audit of the data sources all the way back. Okay, going beyond surface level checks, but diving into the origins of the data, the demographic that it represents, the historical context. All these things are factors that might skew it. Companies need to ask these hard questions, talking about things like, whose voices are missing, what perspectives might have been historically misrepresented or not represented. By actively seeking these things out and integrating diverse viewpoints, companies can begin to mitigate the risk of these biases, and they do it at the root. But addressing bias does not stop just in the collection part of it, Kai. The design and the development process itself, further upstream, that needs to be rethought too, to process and include, inclusivity, right? Bringing in diverse teams to the table, not just talking about in terms of the technical skills, diverse skills. I mean, in terms of cultural backgrounds, even believe it or not, experiences, perspectives. See what happens when algorithmic decisions are made by some homogeneous team, right? A team that's not diverse. Well, they are more likely to reflect a narrower worldview. Okay, by assuring that those who design, build, and test the AI system come from varied works of life, well, then companies can inject a much broader spectrum of thought into that development process. And that's going to lead to algorithms that perhaps are more balanced and representative. This diverse input needs to be combined with rigorous testing environments, things that simulate real world scenarios, particularly those that involve marginalized or vulnerable groups, to identify and correct biases before they even start manifesting themselves out in the wild, so to speak. Lastly, um, I think companies need to embrace accountability as a core principle, right? It's not enough just to aim for unbiased algorithms. See, there needs to be a true, transparent, and ongoing commitment to identifying, reporting, and correcting any biases that are seen, whenever they appear. Now, this means implementing some sort of continuous monitoring, creating channels for feedback from users who might experience or notice biases themselves in the output of the AI. Companies ought to be willing to take personal responsibility, to own up to the shortcomings of their algorithms and to take swift action to correct them once they figure them out. And in the end, well, the question goes far beyond eliminating bias. It should also include whether companies are willing to challenge their own assumptions, listening to those people who are effective and evolve, right? The real mic drop moment comes, Kai, when companies realize that the fight against AI bias is not just a one time fix, but rather a continuous, evolving commitment to both fairness and equity. The moment they stop pretending that perfection is achievable and start focusing on accountability instead, accountability and adaptability, hey, that's when true progress begins.
A question about the accountability and responsibility part. So I know
Hmm.
in the public sector, there has been the rise of the chief data and AI officer.
Right.
In the private sector, it's tacked on the AI responsibility to different job titles. And there is this notion that, AI will be a responsibility added for the next 5 years, but then it will go away as a C-suite title, because
Hmm.
everyone will be using AI. It will be just table stakes. It will be all around us, every single person, just like with the computers, everyone is using them, right? So,
Right.
what's your take on that? Who should own the responsibility with in a company? Who do you think is heir to the throne of AI? And
Wow.
and what
That's a
what
good
makes
question.
the most sense?
So, I'm a firm believer that everything rises and falls on leadership. Okay. But everything does not stop with leadership. I know there's talk of the chief data AI officer, whatever. Just as soon as that title comes, it also goes. Um, if there isn't a person who is a dedicated member of the C-suite that handles only AI, then at least someone who already is part of the C suite should take ownership and responsibility. Perhaps the chief data officer, perhaps the chief analytics officer, or someone who happens to be well versed in both. If there is a CDAO, chief data and analytics officer, even if you don't have a chief AI officer, CAIO, or whatever, um, at least have someone who is at the highest possible level of accountability have the final say. Be the one that makes those strategic decisions. Be the one that is held personally responsible for what happens. People are going to rise to the level of expectations that the leadership puts on them. And if they are willing to rise to that occasion and to take ownership for the things that they do, then the decisions that they're going to make, well, they're going to have a personal stake in it because, it's my reputation on the line. So therefore, I'm going to take the best care to ensure it's the right decision. That doesn't mean I make that decision in a vacuum. Another key in leadership is to surround yourself with people who know more than you do. Right. Just because it is my responsibility doesn't mean that I have intimate knowledge of every one of the intricate pieces, parts that go into that decision. I need to make that final decision. Yes. I need to have the ownership and the responsibility for it. Yes. But I will have others that are equal experts, if not greater experts, who are, you might say, the boots on the ground, the ones who implement the operational steps that go into executing my overall strategic vision if I'm the one, I'm not saying I am, but if I were in that position, yes, I would have that overall strategic vision. I would have that big picture mentality. I would have the course to be charted to achieve the goals that I have, but I would also have the boots on the ground that are going to implement the operational steps that it takes to execute that vision. And I'm going to take the time to listen to them if I am to make that decision. So, yeah, I believe it would be someone at that high level who has the ultimate responsibility as part of their job so they can take ownership, but at the same time recognize that there will be others who will provide the valuable input that she or he would need to make that final decision. But
Mhm, mhm.
there's got to be some high level accountability.
are also models out there where there's not necessarily one person who is tasked with the responsibility for AI alone, but more
Hmm.
structures like an AI council, where you have
Oh
the
yeah.
CIO, the CTO, the CISO, you have the chief data officer, and they're all working together. Do you think that that model is better suited to deal with the complexities and just
Right.
the pace
Sure.
of change? Mhm.
Yeah, no, okay. There needs to be a person where the buck stops here. That does not mean that that person unilaterally does it. And this is where I'm talking, the other people that are execute, but also other people who are peers, and perhaps if there's, the CEO above all of them, that collectively have the input into making that decision. Yeah, it is likely too much for one person by herself or himself, that there be some sort of council, each one bringing their own diverse unique perspective to the table, because AI is a multifaceted diamond, right? And it presents multifaceted problems. A
Mhm.
multifaceted problem demands a multidisciplinary approach before you can have a multi-splendored solution. You can quote me on that. I just made that up. Yeah. So, right. So, yeah. While I'm, I know it sounds like I'm not really backpedaling. There ought to be a person tasked with the responsibility, but not without the input of multiple individuals, peers, and those underneath her or him, and maybe the one person who's in charge of the whole operation. Um, but yeah, it is quite a bit to put on just one person. That perhaps the one person makes the final recommendation, but it's a decision that is made up, that is arrived at from the input from multiple people. So yeah, some type of AI council, if you will, to be comprised by those that have the responsibility over technology, CTO, information systems, CIO, data, the CDO, analytics, the CAO, right? Collectively bringing their collective wisdom. The sum of the parts is greater than the whole, right? And I guess there's an old proverb that says, "In the multitude of counselors, there's safety." And yeah, so when you do have that multivariate conglomeration of viewpoints, perspectives, and distinctives coming into the picture for that decision to be made, I think that that can only enhance the veracity, the power, the effectiveness of whatever final decisions might need to be made regarding policy implementation and so forth. So yes,
Mhm.
that council approach, um, perhaps with one person chairing it, but an approach where you have multiple individuals contributing to that decision. I think that's a good approach.
Mhm. You mentioned earlier, obviously, sensitive data like hiring decisions, people
Hmm.
analytics, finance. What are some actionable strategies to leverage AI responsibly and ethically?
Hmm. Yeah, responsibility and ethics. um, these things need to be leveraged responsibly. I like the way you said that, Kai. Um, you know, I I'd say that it starts with the active integration of human oversight that we were talking about earlier. And we're talking about throughout the entire AI life cycle. Let me break that down. That means that at every stage, from development on the one side all the way to deployment on the other, all the way through the spectrum, there needs to be a human in the loop, or more than one, humans in the loop, to make sure that AI output is not blindly trusted, but critically evaluated. And not just an oversight that's micromanaging every intricate minutia of technology. No, I'm talking about maintaining balance between machine efficiency and human wisdom blended together. For instance, when AI is used in a decision making process, right, it should serve as a tool to augment human judgment, like we were talking about. Augment it, not replace it. Kai, I believe that organizations need to create protocols that require human review of any AI generated decisions, especially when you've got high stakes situations, right? Healthcare diagnosis, we didn't bring that up, but legal judgments, financial approvals that we talked about. Okay, by embedding this distinct layer of human scrutiny, companies can prevent the unchecked spread of algorithmic errors and, well, again, those biases that we've been hitting on off and on. Let's see, another key strategy, uh, the establishment of ethical guidelines and accountability frameworks. Okay, responsible AI use requires clear, enforceable standards that people know ahead of time. And it dictates how AI should be designed, deployed, and monitored. These guidelines need to be rooted in ethical principles, right? Like fairness, transparency, respect for individual privacy, that kind of thing. And to be effective, they need to be more than just abstract ethereal ideas, pie in the sky type thing, right? They must be translated into concrete actions that people can follow. Regular ethics audits, transparent reporting on AI's impact, right? Mechanism for redress in case AI systems cause harm when something goes wrong. Companies also need to create that culture where ethical considerations aren't just an afterthought, but it needs to be the central focus. It needs to be part of our default response. And it can be achieved by setting up ethics committees, and they'll work alongside AI development teams. This makes sure that whatever decision gets weighted against the potential ethical implications, if any. Um, Lastly, companies, I think, should embrace the concept of AI being an enhancer. Again, I keep saying it, enhancer rather than replacer. I can't overemphasize that. The most ethical and responsible use of AI comes when it's viewed as a partner that complements human strengths and not some sort of substitute for human ingenuity. Our laziness gets us to do that. Kai, I think this approach encourages the use for AI for tasks that it excels, like analyzing vast, ginormous data sets, automating routine processes. It's much better at that than we are. But leaving complex, nuanced decision making, the gray areas, leave it in human hands, right? Framing AI as a lever to elevate human potential rather than a crutch that diminishes it when we over depend on it. Companies can harvest AI's power without losing the very qualities that make us humans, right? Creativity, empathy, critical thinking, right? The things that AI cannot possibly do, at least not yet, and not for a long time. Responsible AI use, well, it's so much more than just preventing harm. It's ensuring that technology serves to enhance our humanity rather than overshadow it. Um, and the future of AI, well, it's more than about what it can do, but how we choose to wield its immense power.
You mentioned the human needs to be in the loop. The human
Mhm.
needs to
Yes, ma'am.
have oversight. How do you feel about the latest developments with AI training AI?
Excuse me. AI training AI is like the blind leading the blind. Um, I can see how if AI already has the algorithms that it perpetuates upon itself and it can be a force multiplier to achieve this training so much more quickly, but I still think there needs to be a human in the loop to oversee it. Um, I heard, and I don't know if it's true, and I didn't get a chance to verify that it's true that Meta AI or whatever the name of the engine is that was working on developing some new strategy came up with a language that humans couldn't even understand,
Mm.
and they shut that thing down immediately. you know, because yeah, you don't want to give the keys of the kingdom to some ethereal entity that you don't know what the outcome's going to be. It's like letting a password generator generate a password that you don't know and generate a back door that you don't know either. I just no. I can see the benefit in involving the actual AI engine in training another AI engine, but I don't see it happening without human intervention. We're only, I think, we're asking for trouble when we let that happen without human intervention.
Mhm. What what do you think is the role of individuals and organizations in shaping the future of AI, and especially as it pertains to skill set, mindset, and
Hmm.
company culture? What kind of shift is needed to fulfill it? And just interested to see where where you put the onus and the big share of responsibility on the individuals more so than the organizations, or the organizations
Wow,
enabling and empowering the individuals.
excellent. I say that it starts with understanding that AI is not just a tool, but a transformative force that reflects the values and intentions of the people who wield it. We wield that tool. Kai, to truly fulfill this role, individuals and organizations both need to shift both their skill set and their mindset. I like the way you said, but skill set and mindset, got to have both. Um, this is necessary to keep pace with the AI's evolving capabilities. It's evolving even faster than we think. At the executive level, for instance, okay, it means embracing continuous learning. Everybody, executives, frontline workers, everybody in between, all become fluent in the language of AI. And I don't mean the technical proficiency necessarily. Not everybody can be a programmer. That's not necessarily what's needed. You know, I think it's about developing a critical understanding of AI's potential and its limitations at the same time. Okay, individuals need to cultivate a mindset that sees AI not as an adversary, not as a replacement, but as an enhancer. I've said that about 8 times. Yeah, right. A partner that amplifies its abilities while still requiring their own unique judgment and creativity, the individual. I've said it several times in different ways. Seriously, I don't think it can be overemphasized. Um, Now, on an organizational level, we talk individuals and organizations. Okay, organizations, company culture needs to undergo a significant transformation. The traditional top-down approach to decision making needs to be tempered. Yes, I believe that things rise and fall on leadership, like I said, but at the same time, it needs to give rise to more of a collaborative, cross-disciplinary environment. The council that you mentioned, ethical considerations and diverse perspectives get embedded into every AI project. Organizations need to create spaces where technical experts, maybe ethicists, and end users too, can collaborate in the same room to ensure that AI systems get designed with the holistic understanding of their impact. Okay, this is a cultural shift, and it's going to involve creating an atmosphere of transparency and accountability where mistakes are openly acknowledged, and there's a commitment to continuous improvement, not just punishing people when they mess up. The lesson from the space shuttle disaster I mentioned earlier, I mean, that resonates in every case. It was not just a technical failure, right? It was a failure of communication and a failure of culture. Okay, I talked about the O rings, but it has nothing to do with the O rings. I'm talking about the engineers who warned about those risks were ignored. Why? Because the pressure to launch outweighed the caution to wait. I'm not trying to blame anybody. I'm just saying, there was no AI back then. So this has nothing to do with AI, but we are talking about the same attitude, the same mindset. Okay, today, AI stakes are high. Organizations need to cultivate that culture where caution, ethics, and diverse voices are valued just as much as the speed and innovation that you get from it. So to fulfill this rule, both individuals and organizations, both of them need to adopt a mindset of shared responsibility. I touched on it before. AI's future isn't just solely in the hands of the technologist or the technology or the developer. No, it's in the hands of every single person who interacts with it, and it's affected by it. And this type of thinking, this type of mindset requires organizations to empower their people with not just the technical skills that they need to work alongside AI, but also the ethical literacy to navigate its complexities responsibly. So, like the Wright brothers, you remember these guys, right? They didn't just build a plane; they mastered the thing. Every single detail, every aspect of flight, they mastered it. Relentless learning, adaptation, and a deep understanding of all the nuances involved. Okay, with the same mindset as the Wright brothers, you and me, today, more than a century later, we need to approach AI with that same level of dedication, the mindset, the skill set, right? So, on the skill set embraces AI. On the mindset that critically evaluates its role. And then the culture that prioritizes ethics and collaboration, all those things are going to work together to ensure that AI becomes a tool for progress rather than a force for division and conflict. You know, the future of AI is not predetermined, Kai. I think it's shaped by the choices we make today.
Talking about the choices we make today, obviously we have our own lives, our own behavior that's in our control.
Right.
Organizations have in their control what they can do, but there are also individuals, organizations out there who are leveraging AI really as a malicious use of this technology. And I read a very interesting post from Peggy Tsai recently, where she said, how can we still preserve the societal and economic benefits of open access to AI that fuels vital progress and innovation, but also prepare and fortify defenses against malicious use of this technology? Because obviously, cybersecurity is really trying very hard to catch up with
Hmm.
all the different threats that have emerged from using AI in a malicious way.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
Oh my goodness. I just love, love, love practically anything and everything Peggy Tsai says. I mean, that lady is a pure genius when it comes to understanding AI and data and leveraging both to the utmost. Yeah, I don't think it's a coincidence that her last name is spelled Tsai. And you know what? While we're at it, Kai, it's equally interesting that your first name is Kai, is it not? Right? How cool is that? I don't know. No, all teasing aside, I'm sorry. No, here's my take. All right. Um, Preparing for and fortifying against malicious use of AI. Anything and everything that's good can be used for good, but can also be used for evil, right? And can be corrupted. As they say, absolute power corrupts absolutely. But I think for us, it's a delicate balance. Um, One that safeguards society while also preserving the openness that fuels innovation, right? We want to be open to fuel innovation, but yet we got to be private to protect privacy. It's like, I don't know, it's like balancing on a needle while blindfolded on roller skates, juggling chainsaws all at the same time, right? It just takes too much. Yeah. But, you know, I think we need to embrace some kind of a dual strategy. Strong regulatory structure on one side, commitment to ethical innovation on the other. Okay, it involves maybe establishing policies um, that are somehow, I don't know, rigorous and also flexible all at the same time. How do they do that? I don't know, but policies that can adapt to evolved threats without stifling the creative potential of AI. That's what it's going to take.
Mhm.
And at the same time, we got to promote a worldwide culture of responsible AI development. And that's only going to happen through education, collaboration, transparency. Adopting this approach, doing this I think we can build a resilient ecosystem, and that's going to allow the transformative power of AI to flourish safely. And that's going to include that both progress and innovation are going to continue, even as we guard against the darker possibilities. Um, Imagine, if you will, AI being like a double-edged sword. Okay, sword in the hand of people with noble intentions. By doing so, it's going to unlock unprecedented advancement in medicine, education, technology, environmental sustainability, a whole host of other things. But that same sword, in the wrong hands, it can be weaponized, right? Turning our own creations against us. And the key to navigate this perilous path is foresight. We see it now. And that's the lesson that's been seared into history by the tragedy of the space shuttle that I mentioned earlier. Okay, the O-ring, right? That simple piece of rubber. That thing became the harbinger of disaster because of its limitations. Not the limitations, but the limitations were overlooked in the rush to progress. Now, in the same way, Kai, we need to be vigilant in recognizing the limitations and the vulnerability of AI, especially as its capabilities keep growing exponentially. Not only anticipating potential threats, but building robust defenses that can not only withstand but also neutralize these threats before they wreak havoc. But in no way am I suggesting a call to retreat and fear. It's too much. No, I don't want to shackle innovation with overly restrictive measures. Of course not. Instead, I'd like to think of it as a call to wisdom, a call to harness this immense potential while also remaining ever mindful of its risk. Keep your eyes open. Okay, like the Wright brothers we talked about earlier, right? They studied every aspect of flight, the dynamics of lift, the integrity of the materials that they chose to build their plane. Okay, we too need to approach AI with that same deep understanding of its intricacies. We've got to create a culture where ethical considerations are woven into the very fabric of AI development. And I think this is going to require us to go beyond just mere compliance with regulations. I think it demands that we cultivate, getting back to that mindset you talked about, right, of shared responsibilities. Every developer, every policy maker, every user, no matter how big or small, plays a role in safeguarding the future. Now, I don't know, as we stand on the edge of an AI powered future, I don't want to sound melodramatic, not implying we're on the edge of a cliff. Uh, well, maybe it is. I don't know. But here's my point. See, we are indeed on the edge. Okay. And the choice right in front of us is indeed clear. And that's this: will we wield this tool with the same audacity and care that propelled humanity into the skies and then further into space? Talk about audacity, right? Or will we go the other extreme and allow it to become our downfall? You know, I think if we commit ourselves to a dual strategy of balancing regulation and innovation, I think we can ensure that AI remains a force for good, a tool that not only advances our civilization, Kai, but also, well, maybe even it reflects the best of humanity. I don't know. See, here's the point. This is our moment to take flight like the Wright brothers did, right? To rise above the challenges in front of us and to keep the metaphor soar into the future where AI serves as I don't know, like a beacon of progress, right? A bulwark against the dangers that lie ahead. And you know what, Kai? They used to say that the sky's the limit. Not anymore. The sky is no longer the limit, but rather I think it's the beginning of a new era, one in which we humans, have the power to shape, protect, and guide towards the greater good. And I think we can achieve it by the grace of God. Somehow or another, we will make it through.
Mhm. Great. Great words. Great, almost last words, but I still have one last one for you. And that
Yes,
is
ma'am.
just the question of the discrepancy between companies adopting AI right now, but not necessarily offering training to their employees. And
Mm,
you could say that's the responsibility of the individual. You mentioned the importance of education when we want to combat threats out there, malicious use of this technology. And it's also the question of like, when is the right time to invest in AI? And I've heard many people say it's right now because this is not going to
yeah,
go away. So if you want to invest, you have to obviously find a use case for it to justify the spend, but it's right now. And I'm just interested on your take with regards to the responsibility of companies to offer
hmm,
an actual training when it comes to AI, while they might
sure,
still be exploring themselves how it works and they're just in the piloting stage. So, how do you balance that? The money you need to
yeah,
spend, your obligation as an organization to make sure that everyone is educated, but also to upskill your employees to be able to leverage this technology efficiently.
sure. So, that excellent question. I think it comes down to the mission, vision, and goals of the organization. Okay, what are your policies as an organization to further the mission and vision and goals that you have set for yourselves as an organization? Are you utilizing the technology? Are you just exploring it? Are you in the process of implementing some sort of strategy? Um, Implementing a strategy without educating people on how to use it is like putting gas in a car without an engine under the hood, or like giving a 16-year-old kid a driver's license in the U.S. without showing him or her how to park the car, how to merge on the traffic, how hard do you press the brake pedal before you either put somebody's head in the dashboard, or how not to slam on the accelerator and right, and make a mess. Um, yeah, it is an individual responsibility to be ethical and be careful and be cognizant and mindful of what's going on. Um, but I think it's also an organization's responsibility to, if they're going to adopt, you cannot adopt unless your people are adept. Okay. It's like handing somebody a chainsaw without them knowing, how do I, is there a ripcord here, right? Is it power driven? How do I operate this piece of machinery, or a jackhammer? I can just imagine trying to operate a jackhammer without knowing what I'm doing. I'm liable to, I don't know, send myself to China, boring myself through the ground. Um, so the organization needs to have a balanced approach. Okay, if they're going to adopt a technology, then the individuals that are tasked with that implementation need to understand the nuances, need to understand how to use that technology, how to leverage the technology, how to keep themselves from using it incorrectly. um, Organizations are only hurting themselves if they don't show people how to use things correctly, because invariably they're going to start using it incorrectly, or else they'll finally figure it out on their own, but they'll do so in a very inefficient manner. And that wastes even more time and resources and energy and money and so forth. Um, but if in their, again, getting back to the mission, vision, and goals, if they're not attuned to developing the strategy, then it it doesn't make any sense to have that huge expenditure, when, if they're only in the exploratory phase and they have not yet figured out what direction they're going, or the manner in which they're going to implement. That would be a little bit premature. Yes, I'm all for education, but again, getting back to the jackhammer, um, if I own a landscaping company, I'm not going to show my employees how to use a jackhammer, right? Because they're not going to use a jackhammer in the course of their job. right tool, right job, right place, right environment. So, there's something to be said about jumping the gun. And wait until you've got, once you've got your strategy figured out, once you have your path outlined, once you have whatever it is that you're going, whatever direction that you're taking, aligned with this mission, vision, and goals, that would be the time to start bringing people in. I think bring them in from the get go. Involve representatives from different, the different levels of your organization in figuring out, okay, this is the idea that we have. This is the direction we want to go. I want to hear your ideas on your individual perspective on ways that we can implement this in the most strategic and efficient way possible. And so once you get to that point, jump in, move forward. Before you get to that point, take care. No reason to dive before you figured out how to swim.
Thank you so very, very much, Joe, for all the
Yes,
great
ma'am.
insights you shared with us today for this very interesting and insightful conversation. Um, Thank you
Absolutely.
again on behalf of the Intelligent Enterprise Leaders Alliance. And for those of you who are watching this and haven't already, please be sure to follow us on LinkedIn. My very best wishes, Joe, and thank you again so very much. It was a great pleasure to have you.
Absolutely, Kai. The honor and pleasure was mine. I appreciate the questions and thank you so much for spearheading this amazing initiative that you're doing.
Thank you.